Church Growth Part 2. I'm redoing this one. I did it the other day. I'm redoing it because I just wasn't satisfied with it. My heart just wasn't in it that day. Too much on my mind, and I just couldn't get into it. Listen to this one instead. It's the same thing. I'm just putting more into it. We're going to start with a verse this time. Go open your Bible to Hebrews 5:12. This is the verse that we need to learn. 5 and verse 12. For the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principle of the ordinance of God, and are, listen to this, become such as have need of milk and not strong drink. We've got so many Christians that is not on meat, they're on milk. We need to get our churches, our teachers, our leaders, our church, even some pastors is still on milk, and we need to get them on meat. We need to get them on meat. Growing church is an evidence of people reaching people for Christ. And the evidence of a growing church is reaching people for Christ. We're pointing people from hell to Christ. We're pointing them, go to Christ, not to end up in hell. Go to the cross. Go through the blood to get to heaven. We need to be pointing people and growing people. I understand people leave, people move, and people go quit church. But we should be reaching more people for Christ than we lose. We need to be reaching more. Be reaching more for Christ and not less. That's the importance of this. A healthy Christian has a burden for the lost soul, the lost world. If you got healthy Christians, we're concerned about where people is going to end up, heaven or hell. This is where we need to be looking at. Do you have a healthy church? Is your church more concerned with what's going to be on YouTube or what's going to be on TV or the radio or the work or anything to occupy their time except lost souls? We have a problem. That's what a healthy church does. We need to look. Second thing, growing church allows people to develop into teachers and leaders. If your church is growing and you got a healthy church, it is reaching people. It's teaching people to be teachers. Teaching people that they can teach others. Teaching and making leaders. That you can lead people to Christ. You can teach people how to talk to people. You can teach your neighbors, your family, your loved ones about Christ. You can pick up this old black book. You can teach others. Are you creating a teacher? A leader that would lead others to Christ? That's what we need to be teaching. If you're a growing church, that's what it needs to be done. Look, I remember that verse we just read in Hebrews 5 and verse 12. For the time ye ought to be teachers. When you should be a teacher, you've been saved long enough that you should be able to teach somebody else about Christ. Is your congregation there? Are you there yet? Let's keep going. Ye have need that one teach you again. I've got to reteach you because you didn't learn or I didn't teach you right. It needs to be taught again. You should be already through this part of it. You should already be known how to lead someone to Christ, how to point someone to Christ, how to tell somebody, how to lead somebody with love to follow Christ. But you need to be taught yourself, which be the first principle of the ordinance of God. The first principle is to be taught yourself. And are become such as have need of milk. You're on milk yet, and not of strong meat. You can't eat meat. That's why we got so many Christians in our church that just gets offended so easy because they're still on milk. They're not on the real meat, and they get offended real easy. We need to get rid of baby Christians and make them grow. If you've got a baby that's born and you take them and you keep weighing them every so often, and if their weight stays the same, you're taking it to a doctor and finding out, why is my kid not growing? We need to look at our church, and why is our church not growing? We need to get back into the church, look at it, see what is hindering our church from growing. Because it's not normal not to grow. Many churches create busybodies rather than teachers. We got a lot of busybodies in our church. They're baby Christians. They do not know. They do not know the importance. They do not know what they should be doing. They do not know how to lead somebody to Christ. They do not know how to go. They do not know Christ themselves. I don't mean they're not saved, but they do not know Christ. There's a difference between knowing Christ as your salvation and knowing Christ. They can't teach Christ because they don't know Christ. They might be saved, but they're baby Christians. They need to grow. Need to give them a little bit of meat at a time. You take a baby and you take it from the formula to a little bit harder. For a little bit, you take gravy and you mash it, make it gravy and milk and make it runny so they can eat a little bit harder meat, a little harder food. That's what Christians need to be doing. We need to get developed into harder and harder meat. That's what we need to get to. Our churches has plenty of people with titles. Our churches have plenty of people with titles, but few who are truly leaders. Our churches is full of people with titles. I'm somebody, but they're not leaders. We got to teach our church staff and the people that's got to roll in our church. You have to be a leader. A leader has got to be somebody worthy of following. You got to teach them how to lead people. You can't drive people. You ever try to drive sheep in a barn? They'll just go every other way. You've got to lead sheep. We, the congregation, we are sheep. And we can be led to the slaughter if we're not careful. We got to be led. You got to teach our leaders and our teachers and people in charge. They've got to be leaders. Leaders. That's how you get your church to grow. Third thing is, growing church allows us to reach more diverse group of people. As we grow, we can reach out for the handicapped. We can reach out for all different kinds of people. Jesus was always seeking and looking to reach those whom others had rejected. Christ is always looking for the ones that's been rejected. Them the ones he went out for. Think about that. Jesus cared about the lame. He cared about the blind. He cared about these people that were sick. He would go and heal them. He cared. He went to the woman at the well that nobody wanted. He cared about these people. When was the last time you cared about people? How about your congregation? When was the last time they cared about somebody's soul and where they're going to spend eternity? You know, we can't care for people if we don't grow. We can't care for people if we don't grow. If we're not growing ourselves, we can't care for more people. We need to grow so we can care for more people. It's a process, and God will do it for us if we do it right. A growing church allows us to be an influence and a moral standard in our community. Churches used to be looked up to. I hate to say, but so many churches, you can't tell the difference between the church and the world, and there's a problem with that. Our moral standards ought to be higher. I use something all the time. My parents wouldn't allow us to watch certain shows because it was wrong. And I grew up in a worldly household. You couldn't watch Three's Company. My mom would hate it because the guy acted like he was gay and lived with two girls. You can't do that. No, we ain't watching that. Maze, the guy dressed up as a girl. We ain't watching that filth. That's what my parents taught me in a worldly household. What are we watching today on our TV? What are we teaching in our churches today? You know, I fear we as leaders have grown Christians by numbers and not spiritually. We're looking at numbers. How many can we have in our church? We need to grow more spiritually than numbers. If we can grow them spiritually, our numbers will grow. That's the way it's supposed to be. If you grow spiritually, your numbers will grow. If just 100 churches would grow by an average of 5 people a year, in the next year, we would grow 500 people. Think about that. If 100 churches would grow by 5 people each, we would have 500 more Christians. And if we would grow them spiritually, we'd have 500 more spiritual Christians that could lead others to Christ. And this is a process that goes on and on. And if that 500, so that'd be 600, would go more, how many would you have? And keep going at that. There's where we need to be. That's what we need to be. We need to learn to grow spiritually. Spiritually. We would see people come to Christ, grow our church, and we'd have more people to influence the lost world to this day. But we have a tendency not to grow spiritually. We grow numbers. We do not teach people how to talk to people, how to witness for Christ. With our mouth, with our walk, with our actions. We don't teach it anymore. We might offend somebody. We need to get back to the basic. Back to the beginning. If you want to grow a church, we need to grow it spiritually. And it'll grow physically. Don't forget that. And this is the second one. I'll get a couple more up later on. But listen, if you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you like it, let me know. Thank you.